Rhythm, arrangement, melody. If you're a music fan, you know that stuff's pretty crucial, especially when singing in the shower. But how about tossing it all out the window for now and joining me out on a limb as we listen, ever so faintly at first, to ambient music. I became entranced with the genre as a byproduct of my love of glam rock, especially Mark Bolan, David Bowie, and Roxy Music. Brian Eno, the special sauce of Roxy Music's earliest incarnation, brought a level of technological and artistic experimentation to the group. Frustrated by their direction, he quit the band. Once he went solo, it was only natural for me to follow his development. Eno's first several LPs were oddball pop gems, but he really struck avant-garde gold in the mid and late 70s. But first, a little background on background music. The roots of ambient music can be traced to France in the first part of the 20th century. Classical composer Erik Satie invented what he called furniture music, a kind of background sound that was not meant to be listened to consciously. His 1924 composition, Cinema, is an example of early film music designed to be unconsciously absorbed rather than listened to carefully. In the middle of the 20th century, composers experimented with the avant-garde in classical music. Some composers from this era, particularly the minimalists, embraced the concept of ambience via sustained sounds or drone, as well as tape loops. Lamonte Young, often deemed the original classical minimalist, along with Harold Budd, Gavin Bryars, and John Cage, contributed to these experiments. In the late 1960s, as the mass, youth-driven rock and roll idealism waned, progressive rock appeared to carry the ambitions of psychedelia into a new decade. In a conceptual, stylistical contrast, ambient music also emerged as the quiet, contemplative opposite to prog's often over-the-top virtuosity. Now, let's get back to Brian Eno. In and then out of Roxy Music, he used synthesizers, tape loops, and other new-to-the-scene technologies to create his musical sounds. But it was apparently an accident, figuratively and literally, that led him to develop what he called ambient music. The story goes that a friend of Eno's brought him an album of 18th century harp music to listen to while he was bedridden after a car accident. As she was leaving, she put on the record, but left the volume almost too low for him to hear. Unable to get out of bed to turn it up, Eno was left to focus on the barely audible music, which was just loud enough to hear above the rain outside. He claimed that this experience taught him a new way of hearing music as part of the ambiance of the environment. He began incorporating this, quote, new way of hearing, unquote, in his first ambient release, 1975's Discrete Music. But it was 1978's Ambient 1, Music for Airports, that popularized and solidified ambient as a genre and a style. In the liner notes for Discrete Music, Eno most explicitly defined ambient. He wrote that the genre should enhance the, quote, acoustic and atmospheric idiosyncrasies, unquote, of the listener's environment, inducing, quote, calm and a space to think, accommodating many levels of listening attention without enforcing one in particular, unquote, and, most famously, that it should be, quote, as ignorable as it is interesting. And thus, ambient music was born. In addition to classic ambient music, the increased popularity of synthesizers gave rise to the electronic dance music, or EDM genre. In the late 1980s, the merger of EDM's propulsive rhythms with ambience textures led to subgenres such as dub ambient house and ambient techno. Ambient masterworks in these styles include Aphex Twin's Selected Ambient Works, the KLF's Chill Out, and Autiker's In Kun Obula. As ambient became more mainstream, it inspired indie and alternative ambient artists. In the 1990s and early 2000s, artists like William Basinski, Stars of the Lid, and Labraford brought ambient music to a more iconoclastic audience. Today, ambient remains a popular genre with a wide range of artists and styles. Ambient music has significantly influenced other genres, including post-rock, chillwave, and vaporwave. Leading contemporary ambient artists include Caterina Barbieri, Caitlin Aurelia Smith, Tim Hecker, and FKA Twigs. Now here are 5 favorite LPs of mine representing a range of ambient stylings from the past half-century. Ambient 1, Music for Airports, Brian Eno, 1978. While not Eno's earliest foray into ambient sounds, it's the album credited with popularizing the term. The album's tape loop compositions are designed to be continuously replayed as a sound installation with the intent of diffusing the anxious atmosphere of an airport terminal. It is a masterpiece of the genre. Green, Hiroshi Yoshimura, 1986. This is Japanese minimalism at its finest. Ambient pioneer Yoshimura melds natural sounds, including birds, running water, and crickets, with the arpeggiating synths and soft minimal notes that end up with a poignant effect. Umau Maua, MLO, 1993 and 1995, released in 2021. British electronic pioneers MLO, also known as Peter Smith and John Ty, build their sounds from classical minimalism, New Age, and Eno. MLO brilliantly integrates drones, sustained tones, washes, soft voices, and barely heard percussion to create enchanting headspace. The Disintegration Loops, William Basinski, 2002. A series of 4 albums made from tape loops played for extended time, with noise and crackling increasing as the tapes deteriorate. Basinski, who discovered the effect while attempting to transfer his earlier recordings to digital, completed the project September 10, 2001. The next day, he witnessed the 9/11 attacks from his Brooklyn rooftop and said that, quote, the events gave new meaning to the musical pieces created by catastrophic decay, unquote. The albums are dedicated to the victims. Luna Chroma, or 2023. Californian George Corey Todd, aka Or, works with a palette of dub, techno, micro house, ambient, and jazz influences. This album is a glitchy daydream that's both hazy and hypnotic. Music so experimental has rarely sounded so much like a warm embrace. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay in tune with our next Out on a Limb episode. All I'll say is that it's the opposite of quiet.